Imagine two 9-year-old boys sitting at a kitchen table, frustrated and confused. They've just been told by one father that they should study hard, get good grades, and find a secure job. But the other father says something completely different. Why work for money when you can make money work for you? One boy grows up following the traditional path. Excellent education, steady job, comfortable middle-class life. The other learns to think like an investor and entrepreneur. By age 47, one is struggling financially despite a six-figure salary. The other has achieved financial freedom and never has to work again. This isn't a fairy tale. This is the true story that Robert Kiyosaki tells in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, a book that has sold over 40 million copies worldwide and fundamentally changed how millions of people think about money, wealth, and financial freedom. But here's what's shocking. Most people are following the advice of the poor dad without even realizing it. They're trapped in what Kiyosaki calls the rat race, working harder and harder, but never getting ahead financially. What if everything you've been taught about money is wrong? What if the reason you're not wealthy isn't because you don't earn enough, but because you don't understand how money really works? Today, we're diving deep into the revolutionary financial lessons that separate the rich from everyone else. You'll discover why the wealthy don't work for money, the difference between assets and liabilities that schools never teach you, and the simple shifts in thinking that can transform your financial future forever. By the end of this video, you'll understand why traditional financial advice keeps people poor, and you'll have the knowledge to start building real wealth, regardless of your current income level. Chapter 1: The Tale of Two Dads, Contrasting Financial Philosophies. Robert Kiyosaki's story begins with a unique advantage that most people never have. He had two father figures with completely opposite approaches to money and life. His biological father, whom he calls Poor Dad, was highly educated with a PhD, worked for the government, and believed in traditional financial wisdom. His best friend's father, Rich Dad, was a successful entrepreneur and investor who thought about money in radically different ways. The contrast between these two men were striking and revealing. When faced with financial challenges, Poor Dad would say, "I can't afford it." Rich Dad would ask, "How can I afford it?" This simple difference in language reveals a fundamental difference in mindset. One shuts down possibilities, while the other opens up creative solutions. Poor Dad believed that loving money was the root of all evil. Rich Dad believed that the lack of money was the root of all evil. Poor Dad would say, "Study hard so you can find a good company to work for." Rich Dad would say, "Study hard so you can buy that company." The author reveals how these contrasting philosophies shaped his understanding of wealth. Poor Dad focused on job security, believing that a steady paycheck and good benefits were the keys to financial stability. He worked harder and harder, earning more money, but somehow never seemed to get ahead. Despite his intelligence and dedication, he struggled financially his entire life. Rich Dad, on the other hand, focused on financial intelligence and making money work for him. He understood that working for money was only the first step. The real wealth came from having money work for you through investments, business ownership, and creating systems that generated passive income. Kiyosaki shares a pivotal moment when he was 9 years old. He and his friend Mike were frustrated because they couldn't afford things they wanted. When they asked Rich Dad to teach them how to make money, he didn't give them a job or hand them cash. Instead, he gave them their first lesson in entrepreneurship by having them collect discarded comic books and start a library that other kids would pay to use. This early experience taught them that making money wasn't about working harder. It was about thinking differently and creating value for others. While their classmates were focused on getting good grades to eventually get good jobs, Robert and Mike were learning how to identify opportunities and build small businesses. The author emphasizes that both dads worked hard and were good men, but their different beliefs about money led to vastly different financial outcomes. Poor Dad's advice: get a good education, work for a secure company, save money and buy a house, represents the conventional wisdom that most people follow. Yet this path rarely leads to true wealth. Rich Dad's philosophy challenged every assumption about money and work. He believed that financial education was more important than traditional education, that taking calculated risks was better than playing it safe, and that understanding how money works was the key to financial freedom. This contrast sets up the central theme of the entire book. The financial advice that most people follow is designed to keep them in the middle class, working for others their entire lives. True wealth requires a fundamentally different approach to thinking about money, work, and financial security. Chapter 2, Lesson 1. The rich don't work for money. The first and most revolutionary lesson Rich Dad taught was this: the poor and middle class work for money. The rich have money work for them. This concept challenges everything most people believe about earning income and building wealth. Kiyosaki explains that most people fall into a predictable pattern. When they need more money, they look for a higher-paying job or work more hours. When they get a raise, they increase their spending to match their new income level. This creates what he calls the rat race, a cycle where people work harder and harder but never actually get ahead financially. The author illustrates this with the story of his first job working for Rich Dad. Instead of paying him money, Rich Dad initially had Robert work for free. This wasn't exploitation, it was education. Robert was learning that working for money creates a dependency that never ends. No matter how much you earn, if you stop working, the money stops coming. Rich Dad explained that most people are driven by two primary emotions when it comes to money: fear and greed. Fear of not having enough money drives people to work hard and seek security. Greed makes them want more and more stuff when they get money. This emotional cycle keeps people trapped in jobs they may not love, working for money to pay for things they bought to make themselves feel better about working at jobs they don't love. The key insight Rich Dad shared was that wealthy people break this cycle by learning to control their emotions and think rationally about money. Instead of reacting emotionally to financial pressure, they ask different questions. How can I make money work for me? How can I create systems that generate income, whether I'm working or not? Kiyosaki shares the example of a talented writer he knew who was struggling financially despite her skills. She believed that her talent alone should be enough to create wealth, but Rich Dad explained that the world is full of talented poor people. What separates the wealthy from the talented but poor is financial intelligence, understanding how money, investing, and business work together. The author reveals that this lesson fundamentally changed how he thought about his career. Instead of climbing the corporate ladder to earn a higher salary, he focused on learning skills that would help him build businesses and investments. He took jobs not for the money they paid, but for the experience and knowledge they provided. This approach led him to work in sales to learn marketing, to join the Marines to learn leadership, and to work for Xerox to understand systems and processes. Each job was chosen strategically to build the skills he would need to eventually create wealth, not just earn money. Rich Dad emphasized that this lesson doesn't mean you should quit your job tomorrow. It means you should start thinking like an investor and entrepreneur while you're still employed. Use your job to learn, to fund your investments, and to build the financial intelligence that will eventually allow you to have money work for you. The wealthy understand that true financial security doesn't come from a job, no matter how well it pays. It comes from building assets that generate income independent of your personal labor. This is the foundation that everything else builds upon. Chapter 3, Lesson 2. Why teach financial literacy? Rich Dad's second lesson addresses a shocking reality. Most people, including highly educated professionals, are financially illiterate. They can perform complex tasks in their careers, but can't read a financial statement or understand the difference between assets and liabilities. Kiyosaki argues that this isn't an accident. The education system was designed to create employees, not entrepreneurs or investors. Schools teach people to work for money, but never teach them how money works. This leaves most people vulnerable to financial manipulation and unable to build real wealth. The author shares a startling example from his own life. His poor dad, despite having advanced degrees and a successful career in education, struggled with personal finances his entire life. He understood complex educational theories, but never learned basic financial principles like cash flow, investing, or tax strategies. Rich Dad believed that financial literacy was the foundation of all wealth building. He taught Robert that you don't need to be a math genius or have an MBA to understand money. You just need to know some basic principles and have the discipline to apply them consistently. The core of financial literacy, according to Rich Dad, is understanding the difference between assets and liabilities. This sounds simple, but Kiyosaki reveals that most people get this backwards, which is why they struggle financially despite earning good incomes. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out of your pocket. It's that simple. Yet most people buy things they think are assets that are actually liabilities. The biggest example is a house. Most people consider their home their greatest asset. But Rich Dad taught that your personal residence is actually a liability because it takes money out of your pocket every month through mortgage payments, taxes, insurance, and maintenance. This doesn't mean you shouldn't buy a house. It means you should understand what you're buying. Your home is a place to live, not an investment strategy. Real assets include stocks that pay dividends, bonds that pay interest, rental properties that generate positive cash flow, businesses that generate income, and intellectual property that produces royalties. Kiyosaki emphasizes that wealthy people focus on acquiring assets first, then use the income from those assets to buy the things they want. Poor and middle-class people buy liabilities first, then struggle to acquire assets because their liabilities consume all their income. The author illustrates this with cash flow patterns. Poor people have a simple pattern. Income from a job goes to expenses and liabilities, leaving nothing for assets. Middle-class people earn more, but also spend more on bigger houses, nicer cars, and more expensive lifestyles. Their expenses grow to match their income, still leaving nothing for assets. Wealthy people have a different pattern. They minimize expenses, avoid liabilities, and funnel as much income as possible into acquiring assets. Over time, their assets generate enough income to cover their expenses, creating financial freedom. Rich Dad taught that financial literacy also includes understanding taxes, debt, and investment principles. He explained that the tax system favors investors and business owners over employees. Someone earning $50,000 as an employee might pay 30% in taxes, while someone earning $50,000 from investments might pay only 15%, or even nothing at all. The lesson here isn't to avoid taxes illegally, but to understand how the system works and structure your finances to take advantage of legal opportunities. This is why Rich Dad emphasized that financial education is more valuable than traditional education. It teaches you how to keep more of what you earn and make that money grow. Chapter 4, Lesson 3, Mind Your Own Business. Rich Dad's third lesson is often misunderstood, but crucial for building wealth. Mind your own business. This doesn't mean you should quit your job or neglect your professional responsibilities. It means you should focus on building your asset column while someone else pays you to learn and grow. Kiyosaki explains that most people confuse their profession with their business. Your profession is what pays your bills, whether you're a teacher, engineer, salesperson, or manager. Your business is your asset column, what you own that generates income independent of your personal labor. The author shares how this lesson transformed his approach to career decisions. Instead of chasing promotions or higher salaries, he focused on jobs that would teach him skills useful for building businesses and investments. He worked in sales to learn marketing, joined the military to learn leadership, and took various positions to understand different industries and systems. Meanwhile, he was building his real business, acquiring assets. He started small, buying stocks, small real estate investments, and eventually businesses. His job funded his asset acquisitions, but his focus was always on building his business, not climbing the corporate ladder. Rich Dad taught that there are different types of assets to focus on, depending on your interests and skills. For some people, stocks and bonds provide a simple way to start building an asset column. Others prefer real estate because it's tangible and can provide both income and tax advantages. Some people build businesses that can eventually run without their direct involvement. The key principle is to start somewhere and stay focused. Many people make the mistake of scattered investing, A little in stocks, a little in real estate, a little in starting a business, without developing expertise in any area. Rich Dad believed it was better to become very knowledgeable in one type of asset before diversifying. Kiyosaki shares the story of a young woman who worked as a secretary but dreamed of financial freedom. Instead of spending her evenings watching television or going out, she spent time learning about stock investing. She read books, attended seminars, and practiced with small investments. Over 15 years, her stock portfolio grew large enough to provide more income than her job. She was able to quit work and pursue her passions while her investments supported her lifestyle. This illustrates the power of minding your own business while working for someone else. Your profession provides the income to fund your business, but your business provides the pathway to financial freedom. The author emphasizes that building your asset column requires sacrifice and discipline in the short term. While friends are buying new cars and taking expensive vacations, you're investing that money in assets. While others are spending evenings on entertainment, you're learning about investing in business. But this temporary sacrifice leads to permanent freedom. Once your assets generate enough income to cover your expenses, work becomes optional. You can choose to work because you love what you do, not because you need the money to survive. Rich Dad also taught that minding your own business means understanding the difference between working in your business and working on your business. Many entrepreneurs make the mistake of creating a job for themselves rather than building a system that can run without them. True wealth comes from building assets that generate income, whether you're actively involved or not. The lesson is clear. Use your profession to fund your business, but never confuse the two. Your profession is what you do for others. Your business is what you build for yourself and your family's financial future. Chapter 5. Lesson 4. The History of Taxes and the Power of Corporations. Rich Dad's fourth lesson reveals one of the most important, yet least understood aspects of building wealth: the power of corporations and the reality of how taxes actually work. This lesson challenges the common belief that the rich should pay more taxes by explaining how they legally pay less. Kiyosaki begins with a history lesson that most people never learn. Income taxes were originally created to tax only the wealthy. In the United States, income tax was first imposed in 1913 and initially affected only the richest 3% of the population. The government sold this to the masses by promising that taxes would only affect the wealthy. However, the author explains what happened next changed everything. Once the government tasted the revenue from income taxes, they expanded them to include more and more people. Today, the middle class bears the heaviest tax burden, while the wealthy have learned to use the same system to legally minimize their taxes. Rich Dad taught that this wasn't an accident. It was the result of financial literacy. The wealthy understand how the tax system really works and structure their finances accordingly. Meanwhile, the middle class works hard, pays taxes on their income, and then tries to live on what's left. The key insight Rich Dad shared was understanding the difference between how employees and business owners are taxed. Employees earn money, pay taxes on it, and then live on what remains. Business owners earn money, spend what they need to run their business, and then pay taxes on what's left. This fundamental difference creates enormous advantages for business owners and investors. Kiyosaki provides examples of expenses that businesses can deduct: meals with clients, travel for business purposes, conferences and education, office equipment, and even vehicles used for business. The author emphasizes that he's not advocating tax evasion. Everything must be legal and legitimate, but he argues that people should understand the system and use it to their advantage just as the wealthy do. The tax code is actually filled with incentives for business owners and investors because the government wants to encourage these activities. Rich Dad explained that corporations provide additional benefits beyond tax advantages. They offer legal protection by separating personal assets from business liabilities. If a business faces legal troubles, the owner's personal assets are generally protected. Kiyosaki shares how he learned to use these principles in his own life. Instead of just earning money as an employee, he created businesses and investments that allowed him to take advantage of the same tax strategies used by the wealthy. This didn't require millions of dollars or complex schemes. It just required understanding how the system works and structuring finances accordingly. The author also addresses common objections to this lesson. Some people argue that using these strategies is somehow unfair or unethical. Rich Dad's response was simple. The wealthy didn't create these rules, but they understand and use them. Everyone has access to the same opportunities if they're willing to learn. This lesson extends beyond just taxes to the broader principle of financial intelligence. The wealthy don't just work harder or earn more money. They understand how money, business, and legal systems work together. They use this knowledge to build wealth more efficiently than people who rely only on earning income from jobs. Rich Dad emphasized that this knowledge is available to anyone willing to learn. You don't need to be born wealthy or have special connections. You need financial education and the willingness to think differently about money and taxes. The lesson concludes with a powerful insight. The same system that keeps the middle class paying high taxes offers opportunities for those who understand how to use it. Financial education isn't just about making money, it's about keeping more of what you make and making that money work harder for you. Chapter 6, Lesson 5. The Rich Invent Money. Rich Dad's fifth lesson introduces perhaps the most advanced concept in the book. The idea that the wealthy don't just find good investments, they create them. This lesson reveals how financial intelligence and creativity can generate wealth even when traditional opportunities seem scarce. Kiyosaki begins by explaining that many people believe investment opportunities are rare or only available to those with lots of money or special connections. Rich Dad taught the opposite. Opportunities are everywhere, but most people can't see them because they lack financial literacy and creative thinking. The author shares a powerful example from his own experience. In the 1990s, he found a house worth $75,000 that was being sold for $20,000 because the owner needed cash quickly. Instead of simply buying the house with his own money, Kiyosaki got creative. He found an investor who lent him the $20,000 in exchange for a promissory note at 10% interest. He then immediately sold the house for $60,000 to someone who couldn't qualify for a traditional mortgage but could make payments. The result? Kiyosaki made $40,000 profit without using any of his own money, and he created a win-win situation for everyone involved. The original owner got quick cash, the investor earned 10% return, the buyer got a house they couldn't otherwise purchase, and Kiyosaki earned $40,000 for orchestrating the deal. This example illustrates what Rich Dad meant by inventing money. The wealthy don't just buy investments with cash, they use financial intelligence to create value and structure deals that benefit multiple parties while generating profits for themselves. Rich Dad taught that this kind of financial creativity requires three things: financial literacy to understand how deals work, courage to take calculated risks, and the ability to see opportunities that others miss. Most people lack one or more of these elements, which is why they stick to traditional approaches like working for money and buying conventional investments. The author emphasizes that inventing money isn't about get-rich-quick schemes or risky speculation. It's about using financial intelligence to create value in ways that others haven't thought of. This might involve finding undervalued assets, structuring creative financing arrangements, or identifying problems that can be solved profitably. Kiyosaki shares another example of a friend who noticed that a particular area was going to be developed, but most people didn't know about it yet. Instead of just buying property and hoping it would appreciate, his friend researched what businesses would be needed in the new development. He then acquired the rights to several franchise opportunities and had businesses ready to open as soon as the development was completed. This approach demonstrates the difference between passive and active investing. Passive investors put money into stocks, bonds, or real estate and hope for good returns. Active investors use their knowledge and creativity to manufacture returns through strategic thinking and creative deal-making. Rich Dad also taught that inventing money often involves solving problems for other people. Many great fortunes have been built by finding solutions to common problems and monetizing those solutions. This might involve creating businesses, developing products, or structuring financial arrangements that benefit multiple parties. The author addresses a common concern. What if you don't have money to start with? Rich Dad's answer was that money is just one tool for creating wealth, and often not the most important one. Knowledge, creativity, and the ability to bring people together can be more valuable than cash. This lesson connects to the broader theme of the book. Traditional financial advice focuses on saving money and buying conventional investments. But the wealthy think differently. They focus on increasing their financial intelligence and using that intelligence to create opportunities that don't exist for everyone else. The key insight is that in an information age, wealth comes from information and knowledge rather than just hard work or even money itself. Those who understand how money, business, and investments work together can create wealth even when starting with very little capital. Lesson 6. Work to learn, don't work for money. Rich Dad's final lesson challenges the conventional approach to career development. Instead of climbing the corporate ladder to earn higher salaries, he advocated working to acquire skills that would lead to financial independence. Kiyosaki illustrates this with his own career journey. After college, many of his classmates took high-paying jobs and focused on earning as much money as possible. Robert took a different path, choosing jobs based on what they would teach him rather than what they would pay him. His first job was in sales with Xerox, not because it paid well, but because he was terrified of sales and knew he needed to overcome that fear. Rich Dad had taught him that the ability to sell and communicate with people was essential for business success. Despite being shy and uncomfortable, Robert forced himself to learn sales skills that would benefit him for the rest of his life. The author explains that most people become trapped by specialization. They develop deep expertise in one area, whether it's accounting, engineering, law, or medicine, but remain ignorant about other aspects of business. This specialization makes them valuable employees, but limits their ability to build wealth independently. Rich Dad advocated for learning a broad range of skills necessary for business success. These include sales and marketing, accounting and finance, management and leadership, and understanding legal aspects of business. He believed that a little knowledge in many areas was more valuable for building wealth than deep knowledge in just one area. Kiyosaki shares the example of a brilliant writer who struggled financially despite her talent. She wrote beautiful articles but couldn't sell them effectively. When she took a job with an advertising agency to learn marketing and sales, her income increased dramatically. Her writing talent hadn't changed, but she had learned the business skills necessary to monetize that talent. This lesson explains why many highly educated professionals struggle financially, while others with less formal education build significant wealth. Technical skills can make you a valuable employee, but business skills make you wealthy. The author emphasizes that this doesn't mean you should neglect excellence in your profession. Instead, it means you should view your career as a training ground for entrepreneurship. Use your job to learn skills, build networks, and understand how different industries operate. Rich Dad taught that there are specific skills wealthy people master regardless of their industry. Sales skills help you communicate value and persuade others to support your ideas. Marketing skills help you understand what people want and how to reach them. Financial skills help you understand how money flows through businesses and investments. Management skills help you work with and through other people. Leadership skills may be the most important of all. Rich Dad believed that the ability to inspire and guide others was essential for building significant wealth. Whether you're managing employees, working with investors, or building business partnerships, leadership skills multiply your effectiveness. The author shares how this lesson changed his approach to job selection. Instead of asking, "How much does it pay?" he asked, "What will I learn?" This led him to take positions that sometimes paid less, but provided valuable experience and skills. For example, he joined the Marine Corps not for the salary, but to learn leadership and management under pressure. He worked for different companies to understand various business models and industries. Each position was chosen strategically to build the skill set he would need for financial independence. This lesson also applies to continuous learning throughout your career. Rich Dad emphasized that the speed of change in the modern economy means that what you learned in school will quickly become obsolete. The wealthy commit to lifelong learning and constantly update their skills. The key insight is that your career should be designed to prepare you for financial independence, not just to maximize your current income. This might mean taking calculated risks, accepting lower pay for better learning opportunities, or investing time in developing skills that your current job doesn't require, but that will benefit your long-term wealth building. As we reach the end of our journey through Rich Dad, Poor Dad, take a moment to consider how radically different this approach is from everything you've probably been taught about money and wealth. Robert Kiyosaki has shown us that the difference between the rich and everyone else isn't luck, inheritance, or even intelligence. It's financial education and the willingness to think differently about money, work, and investments. The 6 lessons we've explored today challenge every assumption of conventional financial wisdom. While most people work for money, the wealthy make money work for them. While most people buy liabilities thinking they're assets, the wealthy focus relentlessly on building their asset column. While most people climb the corporate ladder, the wealthy mind their own business and build systems that generate passive income. Perhaps most importantly, Rich Dad taught that financial freedom isn't about earning more money. It's about understanding how money works and using that knowledge to build wealth systematically over time. The path isn't always easy. It requires learning new skills, taking calculated risks, and often doing things differently from your friends and family. It means buying assets when others are buying liabilities, learning about business when others are focused only on their jobs, and thinking like an investor when others think like consumers. But the reward is ultimate freedom, the ability to work because you choose to, not because you have to. The peace of mind that comes from having money work for you instead of constantly working for money. The opportunity to pursue your passions and make a difference in the world because your financial needs are handled by your assets. Your financial education starts now. Which of Rich Dad's lessons resonated most with you? What assets will you start acquiring this month? How will you begin to shift from working for money to having money work for you? The wealthy aren't born with special knowledge. They learn these principles and apply them consistently over time. There's nothing stopping you from doing the same thing, starting today. If this video has opened your eyes to a completely different way of thinking about money and wealth, make sure to subscribe for more powerful book summaries that will change your mindset and accelerate your journey to financial freedom. Hit that notification bell so you never miss insights that could transform your financial future. What's the biggest financial lesson you wish you had learned earlier? Share it in the comments below. Your insight might help another viewer on their path to financial independence. Remember, the difference between the rich and the poor isn't the amount of money they start with. It's the financial education they acquire and apply. Your journey to financial freedom begins with changing how you think about money. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video where we continue building the knowledge that separates the financially free from everyone else.